My English is not perfect, so I guess yours, probably most of you are not native speakers. But anyway, so thanks for coming, thanks for attending. I will try to convince you today, the next 45 minutes, actually the next 20 minutes, and then you will ask me questions, convince you that meetings, which are so popular in agile environment and agile management in current software development environments, are actually doing bad things to the project and are doing actually bad things to the quality of our software. And I will try to convince you that by showing practical examples of how we work, a little bit of a background what I'm doing. I'm a founder and manager, the main manager of a company who is doing software development. We are doing software development, working with about 100 people, and all of them are freelancers, I mean contractors. So they're all distributed. We don't have a central office where people sit together, and we still develop software. We mostly work in Java. And we know we don't have any meetings in our process. So we are communicating through different means, through different instruments. And we're doing it for about 2 years, for the last 2 years. This is my background. So I'm also a developer myself, so I know both sides. I manage programmers and I write code sometimes. Well, I quite often write code myself, so I know both sides. And I do communicate with programmers. So the focus now is on quality. So I want to say that first of all, I want to define what the quality is, and then I will show how meetings are affecting this quality in a bad way. So the quality, in my understanding, the quality of code we develop is, first of all, about maintainability. So everything we do to increase the quality, for example, we write unit tests, or we improve the formatting of the code, or we introduce some rules for the coding, for programmers. Or we ask programmers to increase the code coverage by this unit test, or we ask programmers to do a better design of the code, or to refactor the code. To all of these improvements and all of these requirements we put on programmers, it's all about maintainability. So we actually need this code to be maintainable. So I'm talking about managers. So we as agile managers or just managers or people who are actually paying for this development, we need this code to be maintainable. Maintainable means that if today some programmer is working on this piece of code, and tomorrow we change the programmer, then the new programmer can still work on this code. This is what maintainability is. So maintainability is about the ability to change this code by somebody else. That's how I understand it, and I think it's right. So this is the most important quality, the most important characteristic of a modern software. It's not about the speed now, it's not about the performance, it's not about the any other, or effectiveness or compactness or anything like that, which were like years ago. Now it's about maintainability, mostly because the cost of programmers, the cost of labor is so high now comparing to all other things which are involved in developing the products, software products. So maintainability is the number one priority. It's the number one element inside the definition of what quality is. So we need to keep that in mind in order to understand the rest of my presentation. So I think that again, the maintainability is the ability of the owners of the software to change the team who is working on this code. And the maintainability is high when programmers are not so critical for the team. So the programmers are interchangeable. So it's possible to take one of the best programmer out of the team and put somebody else on the team, and the development will continue. So if this is possible, if we can do that in your teams, if I can do it in my team, then I can say that the quality of code I have is high. But on the other hand, if I have the product and people are working on this product and people are not changeable, so we cannot replace anyone because these people know too much and because only they understand how this code works, then the maintainability is low. So that means the quality of the product is low, which is bad for the person who is paying for that. So the person who is investing money into this development doesn't want to have low quality. If I invest, for example, into something to be developed for me, then I don't want these programmers to own this part of code. I want me to own it. So I want to have the product which is maintainable, which means high quality for me. That's the definition of quality. Now, well, it wasn't like that 20 years ago. 20 years ago, people were less expensive, and the hardware were more and more expensive. The servers, they cost thousands of dollars or like sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. And programmers, they were way cheaper. You probably know how big were the salaries 15 years ago in this country, or even in America, or even in Europe. Now the situation is completely different. Now the labor is like way more costly, and the hardware and everything which is around the software is less expensive. That's why the maintainability is the key. So who is the enemy of the quality? The enemy is the programmer. So who is not actually interested to keep the quality high? It's the programmer. It's the person who is writing this code, and he or she actually doesn't want the quality to be high. Because if the quality high, the product is maintainable, it means that the programmer is replaceable. It means that his job is not secure. So he or she may lose the job tomorrow because the product is so good and anybody can work on this product. So what's the point? I mean, he's like, the position on the company is way more shaky. So this person, the programmer, doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow because the code is so beautiful, everything is so maintainable. So the programmer is the number one enemy of the quality. I'm a programmer myself, so I'm not like, like I said, I know both parts. I understand the position of a programmer, understand what the managers are thinking. And the programmer is actually the enemy. Programmer is trying to do unusual, is trying to do as much as possible naturally to keep the code as close to himself or herself as possible. So the programmer wants to own the code. The programmer wants to be the main owner of this piece of code because it's comfortable, because it's secure, like I said, because this is just natural. Because the programmer feels that the code is the baby, is his baby. So he just naturally loves this piece of code and doesn't want this piece of code to be maintainable and taken away from him. So that's why the programmer is the main enemy of us, the managers. So we want the code to be we want high quality, programmer wants something else. So this is the traditional setup. I just have 9 slides, so I'm somewhere in the middle. We have 2 programmers, Sasha and Masha, let's say. 2 girls, or maybe boy and girl. And we have a piece of code, the source code. So these 2 programmers are working on this piece of code, and now I'm getting to meetings. So in order to, this is a traditional way of how these people communicate. So in order to resolve some problems, in order to understand how to do something, in order to understand how this code works, in order to make some changes to the code, I have some, like they have very often something which is not clear. They have some misunderstanding. They don't know something sometimes. And they communicate. They talk. Sasha talks to Masha, Masha talks to Sasha. They sit together, they organize meetings. We help them. We managers, we help them to communicate. That's what Agile says, that we need to talk more than actually, that the communication is the key. The communication is the most important part, which I agree about. I like that statement. But what I don't like is the way they communicate. So usually they communicate through meetings. They personally communicate to each other, sharing knowledge about the code, and they do it every day. They do it every day. They sit together in the office. They probably sit in the next desk to each other. They share this knowledge. Sasha doesn't know how this piece of software, how this module works. Hey, Masha, tell me, like, explain it to me. Definitely, I'll do it. I'm your friend. And then Masha explains everything, and Sasha knows it. That's great. It's just 5 minutes, or maybe 15 minutes, or maybe more. So we do these meetings every day, again and again. So the source code stays here, and the people communicate there. What I want to do, what I want to suggest, what problems do we have with this? Yeah, probably the order of slides is a little bit, but let's discuss. There are 2 problems actually here. I see 2 problems with this configuration. The problem number 1 is called compromises, and the problem number 2 is called experts. So problem number 1 is compromises. When people discuss things like that, when they know each other, when they sit next to each other, they become friends. That's the natural thing. They become friends, they become liking each other or not liking each other, but they're getting closer. And for them, it's becoming more and more difficult to insist on any rules which the source code requires. Let's say we have a rule we develop, and let's say the rule is we need to write unit tests always. Like we decide to do it that way. So every time we introduce some piece of code, we want our programmers to create also unit tests. This is what our customers want, for example. And we just want that because we think that this is important for maintainability and for quality. And then Masha and Sasha, they start writing something. And Masha creates a piece of code which doesn't have a unit test. And Sasha is supposed to review this code and say, yes, it's a good code, we put it to repository. But there's no unit test. But they're friends, this Masha and Sasha. They're friends, and Sasha says, you know what, there is a unit test supposed to be. And Masha says, you know, it's 5 o'clock, and it's Friday, so how about there is no unit test? And it's difficult for Sasha to say, yeah, Masha, yeah, no, I don't care, this is Friday, we're gonna sit in the office and write the unit test. And they make compromises. Because they're friends, and yesterday, and Sasha realizes that tomorrow, Masha will do the same for him, when it's gonna be Monday evening, or something like that. So there is trade-offs between them. I've seen it many times, probably you've seen that too. So it's really difficult to enforce any rule if they're like a group of people. You cannot just tell them that you're gonna be enemies from now on, that the Masha should be really strict against Sasha, always. No matter what's going on, but if there is no unit test, then Sasha has to write the unit test, and Masha will be completely strict about that. It's just naturally not possible. Compromises. We will have compromises of quality because these people communicate informally. They're just used to that. They're becoming friends, they're having these meetings, they're talking to each other, and that's why enforcing quality will inevitably cause personal conflicts, which is not good. No team will, tolerate that. No team will like that. They will just be saying that if you're going to be the manager who is enforcing them, they'll be against you, and you will create a lot of tension in the team, which is not really productive. So it's just be against the natural how people are made. Well, that's the first problem, compromises. They're inevitable because people communicate informally. So because of meetings, because we put them like that, because this is the way they talk, this is the way they resolve questions, this is the way they share information, that's why we cannot make them enemies against each other. We cannot enforce any quality rules. They will make compromises inevitably, always. And the problem number 2 is that, like I told you, there are 2 problems I see. I tried to find more, but I think there are only 2. When I'm working on the slides, I was working on them and I was thinking, what else do we have? But I think there are only 2 problems. But they're serious. The problem number 2 is experts. These Masha and Sasha, they will, after sharing this information, and because they share this information that way, they will again naturally become experts in certain areas of the code. So they will learn a lot about this code, and they will, because they want this job security, because they want to understand it. I mean, they want to stay in this team, they want people to respect them, because it's just happening that way. They will become experts in certain areas, in certain parts of the code, or maybe in some functionality, or maybe of how these customers want that, or maybe how it should be designed, or maybe what's the architecture. They will become experts, and they will position themselves further and further away from the code. So Sasha, when, let's say, there's a team of people working for a year, and then a new person enters this team. So we have like 10 developers, and the new developer comes in. It usually takes a few months for this developer to actually start understanding how this stuff works and actually start working. You know this like from your practical experience. It usually takes at least a month, sometimes 2 months, for the developer to actually start working. Why it's happening? Because people who are in the team, these 10 people, they are experts. They knowledge experts, subject experts. They know too much about the source code, and the source code itself is rather stupid and unmaintainable. Because Masha or Sasha is the expert. You don't need to look at the code. The code is really like difficult to understand. Talk to me. I'm the expert. That's what Sasha says to everybody who comes in. The new programmer comes in and Sasha says, I'm the expert. Who you should ask about this module A? Oh, talk to this guy. He knows everything about that. And I'm a new programmer. I have to walk there, sit next to this guy and listen to this information and learn and learn and learn. And in a few months, I will become, on the same level probably, or maybe a bit low. So we have experts. And this is the problem number 2, which is why it's a problem. It's a problem for us, for managers, because it's against the idea of the maintainability. The more experts we have, the less maintainable is the code. I cannot replace these experts tomorrow as a manager. I cannot just basically, fire the entire team and put new people. It's just not possible because they are experts. They learned a lot over a year of work. They know too much. And that's why I am dependent on them. They control me, not I control them. I'm a manager, but I'm not really actually managing anything. They are managing me. They tell me what to do because they know a lot. And the customer says, I want to work with this guy. I want this programmer to be in my team because he's such a good expert. The guy is gone, the whole company is ruined. So we lose the programmer, we lose the project. This is really typical situation. Why it's happening? Because they're experts. So the experts is a really bad thing for projects. It's really good for people. People are experts. This is awesome. They love to be experts. But for the teams, for companies, for projects, this is a really bad thing. Subject experts. People who know too much, it's a threat. And I'm a programmer myself. I love to know too much. I love to know the code. But I understand that the more I know about the code, the worse, the bigger the problem I'm making for the project. So what is the solution? I'm getting to it. This is my slide number 7. We're almost done. And this is the solution, what I'm suggesting. Instead of doing meetings, we have to put a barrier between these two people and do not allow them to talk to each other. It may sound funny, but this is how it should work. They should not be able to share information informally. They need to be able to share information. They should be able to talk. But in order for Masha to talk to Sasha, Masha should go through the source code. So Masha should go through a formal channel of communication. If something is not clear, instead of asking Sasha, who is sitting on the next desk, I should file a ticket, for example, or create a bug, or create a request for more documentation in the code. So I always should talk through the source code. In that case, the more we talk, the more information stays here. So these people are not becoming experts anymore. I mean, they may become experts, but we don't care because all the information they were sharing to each other over a year, it's over here. We have tickets, thousands of them, where they discussed everything. We have source code, which is so big and so well documented that everything is in our knowledge base, so-called, in our source code. It's just because we didn't allow them to go to the room and talk there. Well, in my case, it's easy because all the people are distributed and they are in different countries and they just don't know how to call each other. And I'm just, telling them that, you know what, this dear Masha, she says, I want to know how this file works, how this class works, how to write this unit test. And I'm saying, definitely, file a ticket and we find Sasha who will answer you somehow. And this question and answer will stay with us, with me. I pay for it as a project sponsor. I pay for this information. This information stays with me. You will learn it, but I don't really care, if you quit tomorrow. Because you take this information away and walk away, but I'll keep this information. I'll keep this question with me. I'll keep the answer. I'll keep the track of communication. Everything. I just do not allow them to talk. But again, I'm saying it's possible in my case. It's easy because they're all freelancers. They're from different countries. In the traditional way, it's more difficult because it's an office and naturally people will just say, hey, takes me time, to write this ticket, to wait for this Sasha to get back from the toilet and answer this ticket. I'll better go follow him on the toilet and ask there. It's going to be quicker, right? It's just a few minutes. And then I will wait for this ticket answering. That will take me 15 minutes or half an hour or an hour. But we still need to enforce, that's my last slide. So we still need we still need to enforce this rule. We just need to tell programmers somehow, I don't know how exactly you will do it technically, but I can suggest you a few instruments which I'm using. The first instrument is ticketing system. So you put all the communications in the system of tickets. We're using GitHub tickets. You can use Jira, you can use this Trello, or you can use, I don't know, there are many, many instruments where people are actually submitting tickets. So don't use this ticketing system just for bugs which are eventually created, and people usually just afraid of these systems and just trying to stay away from that. Or this is the bug registration system. I just take a look at it just one time a day, maybe twice a week, maybe sometimes, but when I really need that. Instead, people should work with these tickets every day. This is the main panel for them. They should look at these tickets, they should communicate there, they should submit their questions there and get their answers there. This is number one instrument for communication between this Sasha and Masha. No meetings ever. And that's it.